Alright, this is episode by episode discussion and rant about Gosenzo-sama Banbanzai for Uyron, my dearest comrade. Alright, we're back. I finished the first episode and boy was it a weird one. So, let me go through it bit by bit just to jog my memory. So, we have this little anecdote about a cuckoo, obviously already foreshadowing what's gonna happen in a minute, which is that a child of foreign origin is gonna be put into a cozy little family nest and destroy the family's integrity. But, as we can see, it is... So the entire show is drawn in this very simplistic, odd style. And actually, a thing that I noticed is that they all have sort of puppet joints. If you look at his joints here, they're kind of like they're a wooden puppet. And his face too, I don't know, it strikes me as a little wooden. Here the arms too, and so on. So, what happens is that father and son are in a little spat. Just regular family spat, and the show is kind of having this back and forth between the two. And there's this interesting moment when they say something outright, but then a very reverb heavy like echoey thing reveals their true thoughts, and they are like accusing each other. So he's like, "Yeah, I understand that on Sunday you want to rest your body," and the father is like, wait," and the reverb echoey voice of him tells him that that he still thinks his father's a lazy piece of shit anyways. And the father says, "I know, but I don't want to hear this from anyone else but myself." So they reveal like their serious thoughts. What is laid open and bare here is like the internal conflicts of this family already that are in discontent. And as it turns out, he bought a metal bed and his father bought a metal golf club in order to anticipate this conflict. But then what happens is that the matriarchal mother appears, comes up with a lot of excuses to make her son get the doorbell instead of anyone else. The son then gets into a deep conflict about what his mother told him and his actual desire compels him to open the door and enter his granddaughter. Because as it turns out, his granddaughter is a time traveler, and his mother didn't really want to hear this at first. Witnessing that both she can prove that she's the granddaughter, and that the mother can't do anything of it, in terms of usefulness, she chooses to disappear. Very dramatically. So, this brings me to an interesting element stylistically, that it felt more like a theater play. Because at the same time, everything is very... I want to say fourth wall breaking, in the sense of self-awareness. They stand still, they repeat their monologic lines, they talk to each other in extended long monologues with themselves, revealing their thoughts to the audience. We have an extended introspective scene of him just standing in front of the door and going throughout his entire thought process. I'm sorry for the got something stuck in my throat. So far I can tell that it's pretty funny, and that it's very much concerned about highlighting the internal split and power dynamics of this family, because this entire door scene refers to one thing, and which is that the mother seemed to have taught the children and forced it on her entire family to isolate them into behind these doors. Even more remarkable that almost the entirety of the episode plays was inside these doors and behind these doors. So, at first, the mother actually, when she appears, is very fed up and tired and rants because she said, "I moved here specifically so that I don't have to deal with neighbors, and I don't want to deal with neighbors, and the neighbors will most likely be religious advocates or want to sell you something or going to be evil people or whatever." So, she intends to isolate the family as much as she can, and she also intends to be distrustful of any stranger that could enter. So she is very much concerned with keeping her little family relations intact and locked behind closed doors, I want to say. This is mostly just speculation at this time, but it seems to go there. Because as a result of the granddaughter appearing, Mother tries to refute the narrative as much as possible, and when she fails, as I said before, she disappears. So at the same time, it highlights the internal conflict of the family, where people have lingering maliciousness and bad intent towards each other, at the same time as they are paranoid and are isolating themselves from the outside world. Alright, let's quickly, before we go on, look at people who worked on it. I already know some, which is, for example, Mamoru Oshii, of course, how should I put it, like Ghost in the Shell and Pet Labor and so on fame. So a pretty big director. Kenshi Kawai, of course, always working on a soundtrack with him. This time around, I didn't find the soundtrack too much standing out, too noticeable. Mitsuo Iso has surprised me because he's like a god tier animator, but as you could see just now, it hasn't really that much visual effort in it. It's very simplistic style-wise and also animation-wise. And so I'm honestly a bit surprised to find his name on here. But who knows, maybe I'll be surprised when I see stuff in the future about this. So much for that right now. I will continue watching episode 2 and then I'll return. Episode 2 is done as well, and boy, this was a dense one. A lot of shit happened here. A lot of fucking shit happened here. So, the penguin anecdote about a father diligently like brooding onto his egg, blah 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 blah. Let me get to the stuff. First of all, we got this motherfucker. This nasty ass motherfucker. He's a time cop, or something along the lines. He's come to protect the integrity of the timeline, because what has happened is the balance of the family has been upset. And this is in a move that reminds me a lot of Kafka's Metamorphosis, because the father, whom we had previously been introduced to as someone who's like exhausted, wanting to laze around on Sunday and not taking any action, and the son who accused him of being lazy, is now actually growing into his role, because he has a new person in the household who reveres and admires him. This gives him the stability or whatever to feel as though he is the master of a household, and in this way he can live up more to the role and take more and feel more accomplished about himself. This is about the idea of the father as someone in dependence on the admiration of someone below him. But this piece can't last, because the first thing that happens is that our buddy boy comes here and makes sure that no law can be broken. Interestingly enough, when he's prodded on the question of why is it a bad thing that Maroko is coming to visit her ancestors, he's saying because it violates the law. He doesn't actually have any ethical arguments or points to make. The only thing he says is that it's bad. He merely echoes and mimics what our authority says. This interestingly fits very well with the description of the future we're getting. Namely, that it is a future in which a strong traditionalism and a strong focus on revering your ancestors has led to families mainly isolating themselves, being stuck very much in tradition and very much ordered around fatherly authority. And it would only make sense that a bureaucrat and a single, he makes sure to point out that he is single, would follow authority to the T. So what this results in is a discussion of how this improper relationship of the new girl who entered this family has already disrupted the family, has upset the balance of power from the father, given him more motivation and power, has put the father into conflict with the son for the love of the girl, and has alienated and sent away the mother completely. So completely removed the mother figure. That the family unit as it was completely altered by the arrival of an obedient, very domestic girl, which has nothing. This is also very interesting. Instead of like ideas of a future that has progressed in terms of social equality, the future seems to have regressed. She's like the picture perfect image of a traditional wife. She cooks for them every meal and is always bowing down to welcome the father home and thanking him for his good work in the day. So in every possible conceivable way, she returns to the traditional wife attributes, because it is a future, a culture in which reverence of the past and adherence to authority and merely being stuck in the past has become the main impulse. And this is why this cop also exists, because he realizes there is an unhealthy tendency for people in his time to go back in time to hang out with their ancestors. And this is now illegal because, well, obviously, if everyone just hangs out with their ancestors and is only focused on the bloodline, a country will fall apart. Here he explains in detail that the central unit of organizing a country, the family should be in service of running and organizing a country rather than supersede the country's the country's important. And yeah, you can tell it's very densely packed, and it's talking about the nature of authority and nations and families in themselves and as constructs depending on some form of authority or validation or subservience of someone. The state wants the family to be subservient to the state in order to like perpetuate the state and function as an expansive mechanism of the state. And the family wants some part of the family to be subservient in order to justify its essential family unit, to divide oneself from solidarity, from the body of a nation, from societal functioning. Okay, I actually want to change my perspective somewhat, because this boy, apparently, since he is single, and he isn't valuing the family's authority, he's valuing the state's authority instead. This makes more sense, because I said first that a society focused on traditional values would, of course, value authority more. This still works, but I now realize that the dichotomy being made here is between state and family. That too strong family upsets the state because families isolate themselves from any solidarity, but too strong state, I would argue, probably also leads to something fucky, because this dude has been shown to be mean-spirited. Here in this scene, we see him drink a Coke and just we see him take a Coke, go over to the kid, offer him the Coke, like this. Here, one. Oh, fuck you, boy. So, this is what we've seen. He's mean-spirited, while at the same time he demands of the family to not isolate itself and to contribute to like some sort of universal solidarity. So what I see here is a kind of conflict. That he is from a society that doesn't really care about the individual, but only cares about people as functions of societies. Dichotomized with a family that doesn't care about society, but only cares about itself and its egoistic internal power struggles. Let's see where this goes, because now we're coming to a head, because our little boy has slapped the motherfucker down, and now he has, through some loops of logic, convinced his father, or rather left his father behind, and has been escaping with the girl alone, with his great-granddaughter, and for him it is still very much a sexual thing. He's very much interested in her, and for him this is a fantasy come true. The fantasy, the idea of the lovers, like, going away together, running away from whatever authority, family, father, and so on. So father has been left behind, family unit has been completely disrupted by the magical evil girl who will bring chaos into the family union. So a lot's going on. Let's see where it leads in the next episode. Alright, before I get to episode 3, I'm quickly back again, because I forgot some of my notes. I mentioned that it reminds me of Kafka's Metamorphosis. So I should expand on this, because in the Metamorphosis, the son of the family who has taken over the leadership of the patriarch in the family, because he was working and his father wasn't working, turns into a bug, into a giant bug-like creature, which means that he technically crushed under the pressure of the family, of leading the family, and thus turned into something that his family despises, someone they look down on. This causes the father, since he now is, again, the head of the family and needs to man up and take over, to him recovering, getting back into a job and posing as a dominant, forceful figure. So this is what this episode reminded me of. The occurrence of the weird girl reinforces and reinstates the power position of the father. We can also, in the previous episode, just to tie into the psychosexual symbolism a bit more, we can see this scene where the son is trying to take a bath and is trying to invite Maroko to join him because he, of course, wants sexual power over her. When he turns around expecting Maroko, it turns out his father is there judging him. So fatherly power has been regained by the supernatural occurrence, like in the Metamorphosis. And this entire episode also has him, the father, talk about the worries of the son's transgressions. He has a long extended sequence where he's thinking about how good it is, how nice it is right now. But if it weren't for his son's mischievous desire, which is dangerous and should be worried about. Here. This is his only fear. His only fear, the only fear of the father, is to be superseded by the authority of the other man in the house, his son. This everlasting conflict between... This is kind of like an Oedipal conflict, because Maroko kind of takes the role of a mother figure, but certainly an incestuous figure for both of them. And both of them are competing over her affection and attention in two different ways, of course. The father to reinforce his own authority, and the son to reinforce his own manhood, to become a man in claiming ownership over a woman, and sexually, I mean. So then we have another scene, which I also didn't talk about. It's good that I took notes, because when I went back to watch the next episode, I found my notes. So what we have here is like the total isolation of the family, and where the hypocrisy is pointed out. So what happens is the red-hooded man insults the son and then bashes him into a wall. The father complains and says, "How could you do this to my son?" The red-hooded man explains, "Listen, I know you love your son, but if you are saying the same stuff to your son, and you know it is true, but when I say it, it's wrong because you value blood bonds so much." And he says, "Yeah, sure." Then the red-hooded man goes and insults the father, and the son says, "Hey, fuck you." And the red-hooded man turns around and says along the lines of, "Yeah, but you know your father is like a lazy bum and whatnot, that my insults are basically true. You only protect him because he's part of your family." So we have the red-hooded man who isn't part of a family, who clearly seems to be against the idea of these family units and more in the idea of dissolution of family unit in order to have a solidarity state. He seems to obviously be of the opinion that blood ties actually do not matter. But, and here's a contradiction which I find interesting, blood ties do apparently matter when, well, it's not really a contradiction because it fits with his worldview that he wants blood ties to be non-existent. But also because it's blood ties, it's bad to time travel like they do. So visiting your ancestors is explicitly the crime. Mingling with your ancestors is explicitly the crime. Improper behavior with the ancestors is explicitly the crime. So it's all tied up into bloodlines, even though he himself does not value or see any special transcendence in bloodlines. Alright. Okay, episode 3 is done, and it's getting harder and harder to keep my thoughts in line, because God, there's so much going on in this. Okay, so a big chunk of it now turned into characters basically having philosophical or psychological monologues / dialogues with other characters who represent some sort of principle or idea, and all these struggles and conflicts and so on unfold. So this time the bird metaphor at the start of the thing was quite a bit more interesting, because in this one, it is about courtship. They explain this the male bird has basically someone else invade upon his territory, some disturbing presence, an other. And this other, at first, seems alienating. It seems to challenge my territory. It seems to challenge my status. But due to inherent sexual urges, he does depend on her for reciprocation. So, in his ambivalent feelings of desire and being scared, the first reaction of the bird is violence. But then the violence results in more violence because the unfulfilled sexual urges make him realize that he has lost the slave upon which he depended to constitute his master role. I deliberately chose master and slave, of course, because Hegelian dialectics, all this stuff. So, then it goes into mating rituals. And this is also like basically the underlying theme of the entire episodes, because it is about power dynamics and mating rituals. because the son, Inomaru, has fled together with Maroko, and both of them are trying to live a runaway life. Only, and this is where we get to this guy, only for Inomaru this is actually, Inomaru has his own view of how things should be. And let me first explain what's going on in this scene. So basically, this is a detective, and this is the mother. And the detective has a very interesting, unique epistemological theory. That is, they talk about how the only truth that you can trust and the only truth that is revealed to yourself is the one that reveals you to your own eyes. They talk about this, they expand on the concept that you actually fundamentally can't trust any other information than that which reveals itself to you. But in a very interesting twist, this idea, this very egotistical epistemological theory, results in both of them to obsess in shallowness and vapidness. They instigate photos. The mother in photos puts herself in sexy, desired poses. He himself participates in that. So the epistemological concept of only trust your own eyes is revealed for what it is, merely something that also perpetuates fantasy. Fantasy being exactly what they critiqued before, that Inomaru tries to see something in the girl in Maroko who appeared, that the father of the family also tries to see something in the girl. Here's the thing. They conclude that the father has fully accepted Maroko as his great-granddaughter. Why? Because he wants to. Because it allows him to escape the reality of his undesirable lifestyle and escape into a fantasy, where this fantasy can, through desire and affirmation, replace things he was lacking. For Inomaru, but on the other hand, it isn't so. They claim that he fundamentally does not believe that Maroko is his granddaughter, that he instead just wants to utilize the situation of being a man and a woman to project his own fantasy, his own fantasy of running away with a girl and of courtship, in a sense, of getting through to her. So, on the one hand, we have again our one side to reveal itself as shallow, as superficial, as egotistical, as driven by their own interests and limited perspective. But also it is absolutely true. Inomaru does want to see his life as a story. You see him go through multiple iterations of trying to impress her sexually or romantically or whatever. He is playing music in a fantastic scene where the music is alongside his ever exaggerating words. Here he's trying to carry her weight, but she says, I want to work, and this challenges his power position fundamentally. Here he's trying to defend the status after all. But then appears society, the debt collector. He is coming here to tell Inomaru that he has inherited the debt of his father, and that the debt of his father is something he needs to take responsibility for. That he basically is his own person, but still inherits debt. The blood ties, actually, legally speaking, transcend not along the lines of something fundamental or emotional or anything else necessarily, but through the strict capitalist logic of you inherit debt, you inherit wealth. Your parents are your economic factors, and this is necessarily the truth of the matter. And this capitalist character also appealing to free will is quite remarkable in that context too, because the idea of the individual rational actor free of coercion or forceful conditions that they were born into is a very capitalist mindset. So he appears as a disruption to the fantasy frame. Inomaru basically tried to escape society by living his life on the road, going from hostel to hostel, just imagining himself to be Maroko's caretaker and protecting her and having a relationship of man and woman between her. So not only did his fantasy fail on the literal level of that Maroko didn't even approach him in that way and didn't even see him reciprocating in this way, but also that the reality of economic factors appears. He is poor, he is in debt now, and Maroko apparently needs to work because she can work and this man is running a hostess club. But this is a challenge to Inomaru's male authority over the situation. He was trying to claim ownership over Maroko by this running away. And now he's failing at it due to socioeconomic realities and the inherited debt. And this is a very tragic situation for him. This puts him literally the boot on the head, right? So, and also interesting to note is that the cameras are associated with the detective, but also the cameras associated with the fantasy frame. So, You can see in the background here, camera looking into the window. The fantasy frame that is always observing is the egotistical way in which we perceive reality. The fucking camera is everywhere. And the camera has also been there from the start. Nikon, the company logo was also printed on the Zeppelin. And the Zeppelin was associated with the time machine. The girl came, basically, the time machine is her fantasy frame, her desire projected onto the world. The fantasy frame is the limited, in Lacanian psychoanalysis, is the limited perspective with which we paint over reality to mask it in a way that enables us to think we can pursue our desire being mediated by fantasy and created by fantasy in the first place, but only accessible to us through fantasy. So we have these multiple layers where all these characters construct fantasies and perceive themselves through their own fantasy frames as if in a camera. This reinforces why the entire show has such theatrical acting and so on and so on. And this is where we're at right now, and I think it's getting denser and denser with every single episode, so I'm stoked to see what's going on up to episode 4. Alright. Okay, episode 4's done. It's getting real complex and confusing. But let's go through it bit by bit, then I'll be able to, I don't know, figure it out probably. So, here we have, at the start of the episode, the anecdote of an ostrich. The ostrich is an animal who will fight other ostriches and adopt their children, because, yeah, that's what ostriches do. And we see something similar in this episode. Let me just jump ahead a little bit before I lose track. What happens is, despite being revealed that Maroko is actually an imposter and is actually pretending to be a daughter, they completely accept her. And they all run away together as a family. So, okay, let's see how we get from A to B. So, we start after the opening with a shot of mother and detective arriving. They got the evidence that is necessary to discredit Maroko. That seems to be her purpose, at least initially. So, what we then get is a depiction of Maroko having fun. Meanwhile, Inomaru is working. And what happens during that scene is a very enigmatic song. And I actually want to go through it just to see. The Guard Dog of Time by Murata Bunmei, who, by the way, also turned out to potentially be an imposter. Okay, let's go through it. Are we waiting for dawn? Until the Battle of Time reaches its end. Well, obviously, dawn is like a day. When a day is over, the next day starts. Until the Battle of Time reaches its end. Battle of Time being life. His blacklist includes the Bible, a lack of morals, or rather, anarchy is his face. Yeah, that's the lack of morals we're talking about. And he'll kill those who oppose him without mercy. I'm, at this point, not entirely sure who we are talking about, but I assume it's Inomaru. Groping in the dark with his back to the wall. Yes, this is also what happens later, that the family has its back to the wall. That is explicitly being said. So basically at this point, Inomaru is groping around in the dark trying to figure out how to get somewhere. Unsinkable aircraft carrier, redeemer of his own name. I don't know. What does it mean if you redeem your own name as an aircraft carrier? As an unsinkable aircraft carrier? By not sinking, I guess. A tax deduction, a man overwhelming to women. No fucking clue. May 3rd, useless and bulky stuff. I have no idea what May 3rd means right now. What loneliness. And a bit of an interlude. A guard dog lost in the wind. This is most likely in reference to himself as well, because he was like the guard dog of time. But also we see later in the episode Inomaru being tied up and being treated like a dog. So there's a mixture there. Barks in the middle of his confused thoughts. A sort of lashing out is implied here. his in the middle of this episode, Inomaru's confusion does manifest itself because he's pointed out the contradictions about Mariko. A fascism called freedom. Okay, this one is hard. I'm not sure if I can make sense of this right now. A nihilism that finds shelter and peace. This seems like if you keep up the illusion of peace, that you might be able to avoid like the meaninglessness of the world. I don't know. So, probably it refers to the fact that Inomaru is willing to accept Mariko as his granddaughter to perpetuate the fantasy, in order to avoid the meaninglessness of their previous encounter, in order to constitute what the story is. That's what the dog is smelling. Yeah, Inomaru is smelling that. That is what he's seeing, together with mendacious orders. Yeah, I don't know. Declarations of war and mass blitzes. I don't know. Probably the declaration of war probably refers to the family getting together and escaping into outside of the society later on. Hard lines and liver malfunctions. Oh, this refers to Maruko's past, where she has been betraying people and entering families and destroying people's lives before, and this is in reference to that. Sunday holidays and Arima Hot Springs. This is referring to the other episodes so far. Such sad things. Oh yeah, I think he's done. Okay. So, this is already pretty weird. So this song seems to refer to some sort of existential sadness and absurdity that is moving Inomaru. And even just now going over it again didn't really help me too much. But let's see where we're going from here. So where we are going from here is an interesting thing. Because the capitalist basically puts him in his place and tells him where he's going. Meanwhile, he insists on the story of Mariko and me. This is where we get into another epistemological discussion. The desire to look for a different story that begins with revolutionary development, ignited by a character appearing from nowhere by a new situation. It, in reality, usurps the possibility of the story itself. Okay, this is complicated. This is literary theory right here. The idea of this story, and he will explain this now. The structure of a tale or story that has a beginning, middle, and so-called inescapable end does nothing but depict itself. Okay, so what he means is that if you like follow fixed structures and tropes and repetitions of this kind, you don't tell a new story or a tale, but you retell the same story or same tale as always. You, in your fantasy, can convince yourself that it is correct and true and whatever, and desire this, but you will only replicate patterns that have always been replicated. I think this ties into the ostrich story and the general courtship and evolutionary logic of sexual drive. You will, through these circumstances, keep replicating and replicating nature, and in the same patterns act upon it. But not only this, but also it's tied into the job that he's doing. Inomaru is there infinitely roasting corn cobs for customers that may never come. So his idea of punishment from the capitalist, basically, he represents capital. His idea of punishment is that he's, for his life, bound into a little doghouse, and his job is to mindlessly repeat the same job for customers that may never come in order to, at some point, end. And that's his life, this repetition, there's nothing changing. This is a tale that tells itself again and again and is inherent to the capitalist logic of these tales. So his trying to escape from this with his own tale is naive, and he must shoot it down. That's known as a great story, only from this very aspect. A tale worthy to be called that has no beginning, no middle, no end. Well, I can't completely parse it now, but one thing I did notice is that it reminded me a lot of the literary theory idea of the Oedipal struggle between the old author and the new author. that every idea you could formulate in a new version has in some capacity already be prefigured by an older author, and that by reiterating it or rewriting it, you basically just restate what they already stated, what you can already extrapolate from their text, and that no text in the future will always be free of that which it has been constituted of and constructed from in the past. And this is determinism. So what this refers to is determinism. The way in which everything is predetermined, as well as that we cannot recognize a role within it outside of the frame of fantasy. We are determined by our surroundings, be it material conditions, as in depth, as in blood ties, as in evolution, as in whatever, psychology, as in our desires. We are predetermined, but at the same time we cannot see our place in a story. And this is now the end of your story refers to the fact that he's apparently supposed to be stuck in this job, working off his debt, and that's it. But they may do a rift in this. By the fact that customers do appear, and the customers who do appear are the family. And this would only be evidence that confirms the loop of the same logic as what he says. So I suppose that the family appearing only restarts the same struggle, apparently. So in this moment, Inumaru struggles and questions, on what basis should I play the role of me? If everything is predetermined, if there's no idea of what is me, what can I be? And okay, this is interesting because I don't fucking know what I'm grasping right now, because this was so utterly confusing. Mother appears and says, yeah, Maroko has always been fake, and everyone is like, yeah. But then Inumaru claims, well, but we are united right here, right now, aren't we? So the plan of her to crush our family didn't function. But instead, we could just reject fate, and accept her into the family to reconstitute the logic of the narrative. He even says that because his desire is being fulfilled, if he can legally be part of Maroko's family and legally, without blood ties and incest taboo in the way, get to her and come together with her. Meanwhile, his father's desire for her to be in his family will be satisfied because she will be a daughter-in-law, and they already reunited with the mother. So what would be even the problem? So what role should I play in this? On what basis should I play the role of me? The results this series seems to come to in this point is to aspire to create a fantasy that you can live and endure and perpetuate and create out of nothing. And the question, does it make sense or not? The answer, no, it doesn't need to make sense because we are a family. Plus, additionally, the father has just stolen a large sum of money and is being searched for by the police. So the family will now escape together, everyone together, and it's just really, really odd and confusing. I'm hoping to be able to piece it together much more nicely, starting with the next episode. I don't know if I will be able to, but so far we've traced a few interesting ideas, because the idea of determinism and seems to was a strong theme from the first episode, because we had these psychological conflicts of the family, like the bored husband and wife relationship, the isolation, the alienation, the fear of any change, any renewal, and so on, with then the entrance of the new girl disrupting the harmony and peace of the family with a new impulse in a new direction, changing radically the living situations and inciting every one of them to actually go and do something with their life. The mother going and finding out and reuniting with her family after having revealed the lacking information and reclaiming a sort of dominant position. The father running away, stealing money. Inumaru trying to realize his own sexual fantasy by living with Maroko together. It's all this is predetermined in their desires, predetermined in their fixed role in the family, all predetermined in their rituals of courtships and sexuality. So let's actually see where this goes, because I'm getting confused and my ramblings are also getting all over the place. So let's see what's up. What the actual fuck is this show? Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, let's okay, we have shit to talk. Let's go through it bit by bit. I hope it will help me sort out my thoughts as well. So we have at first this anecdote about this bird who lets this child grow up in a protected little cubbyhole from which he has at some point to emerge. And then, by his own volition, he has to emerge and he has to escape into the real world and experience life. That's the basic gist of the beginning part. So now what we've experienced is that the family is turning to crime because to survive outside of society now. The power relations within the family have changed as well. Now the father is distinctly at the bottom again, while the mother plays the role of an intensely commandeering matriarch. And in this discussion, they make a distinction. The father cries about shame, that shame was brought to his bloodline, and the mother merely has... This is a good frame, by the way. The mother has merely a monologue about the relationship between bloodlines and family relations. She makes a distinction. She talks about the idea that there must be a difference of a family destroyed by law and the family destroyed by its own bonds, which is a weird distinction. The use of violence was justified to protect the family. The law is attacking the family in the sense that the situation they're in, the socioeconomic circumstances or whatever, are harming their status quo. I value the family bond greatly, the family build, but I have no interest in the family name, ancestors, bloodlines, and such. She has an active contempt for this. So the transcendent quality of bloodlines are irrelevant to her. What is relevant to her is the arrangement of family. So even if they exist as criminals in society and suffer oppression, they will stay united and endure to continue to function as a family. And then she does a Hitler salute and Sieg Heil is shot in the background. So there has to be something fashy about this idea of the family as she is talking about it, which is that despite all of society, the family is the one true family organism, is the thing to be protected. And I guess, yeah, there's a fascist trace in this. And I would love to think about what it meant in context of the fascism called freedom in the last episode, but I really can't see the the tie between those two things. So let's just go on, I guess, because it gets fucky. So what happens now is that the teenagers both serve the family as waiters and waitresses. And then she turns against us. And Mother confronts us, the viewer, with a false wall break and says, you didn't even question this ridiculous arrangement of plot. This weird shit going on right now is your retribution. I mean, I guess it's kind of pointing out the absurdity of the own plot, like the risky topics about family whose members call each other parents, son, grandchild, great-grandchild, and so on, completely randomly. We deserve this, apparently. So what happens now is that the detective analyzing this situation, and I want to say he's more an analyst than a detective, is breaking out into a little song. And they sing together. The present you see with your eyes is all deception. Now he's going to talk about some subconscious impulses. And here we have the click of the camera. And now he's revealing to us some truths. The first truth is all men dream about their lies. Click. All women turn their back on the truth. Detectives do not believe in love. Okay, then we go on. Click. All men feel passion for their subjects. And click. All women turn into flowers in those photographs. I genuinely have no way to parse this scene as anything different but him being like a psychoanalyst, because what he's stating fundamentally amounts to principles Jacques Lacan talks about the relationship, the sexual relationship fundamentally. First of all, the detective doesn't believe in love. Well, here's a quote from Jacques Lacan. The sexual relationship doesn't exist. He fundamentally says there is no sexual relationship because the desire that constitutes womanhood and manhood are incompatible. And precisely in this song we get it pointed out to us, like almost exactly. Okay. All men dream about their lives, and all men feel passion for their subjects. Let's talk about what Lacan thinks male sexuality contains at its core. All men are subject to castration, yet they try to regain that sense of power which they have lost. It's not about cutting off the penis. It's about power. It's about control. It's about the thing that gives you access to your desire. So what they desire is to regain the phallus, which is the symbolic way to regain their lost power. They dream about their lies. So the lie is to have the phallus. They dream about. This is their desire. And they feel passion for their subjects. To have a subject means you are the master. Your subjects are the ones below you. Passion for their subjects. It's the women. Obviously. Possessing the women is the male power, is the male embodiment of power. So they dream about their lives, which is to possess their subjects, and so on and so on. The male desire is to be powerful, to possess. Let's go to women. All women turn their back on the truth, and all women turn onto flowers in these photographs. Lacan says women pretend to be the phallus. They pretend to be that thing which the man wants to possess in order to regain access to his lost desire. They turn their back on the truth in that they pretend to be something, and they turn to flowers in these photographs, as in flowers, the thing which we perceive to be desirable. Episode 1 ties into this very strongly. Turn into flowers. If you remember episode 1, there the son, Inomaru, has been obsessed with the idea that a beautiful flower was arriving. The color yellow was very dominant, and as he saw through his binoculars, through his fantasy frame, looking out the window, approaching the figure of a flowery thing, that was where he projected his desire. So women turn into flowers in these photos. The woman that he wants to possess, that from which he derives his manhood. So this show, and I'm not gonna claim Oshi read Lacan, but this show is outlining Lacanian theory of sexuation. So, okay. Let's go on with this and try to make some sense out of it. Detectives do not believe in love because obviously... Okay, here. This is getting into some real shit. He talks about the fact that in stories we never see depicted two things, which is the birth of the self and the death of the self. Because we cannot really capture them, we cannot grasp them. And he says that we go to stories for precisely this, to see a clear beginning and to see a clear end. The clear conception, inception, and the clear ending. The self exists on uncertain ground somewhere between birth and death. So we search for clear beginnings. Beginnings. That's why people seek out stories. For beginnings full of anticipation and emotional finales. This is not something reality inherently has. This is kind of an absurd desire, which is what he will derive, that because of the imprecision and of the uncertainty of the beginning and the end when it comes to actual life, the birth of the self and the death of the self, we seek for some safety in stories. This is why they still follow stories. It is not real, and instead this is why people shape their lives after. Okay, this is fundamental. This is very black pill of Oshi. Okay, listen. True love is probably complete illusion. Lacan points out there is no sexual relationship. There is no compatibility between this. A man is wanting something that he can never have, and a woman is pretending something to be something she can never be. And this is the basis on which the relationship will always fail, in a sense. It can be painted over by certain fantasy frames, and this is what Lacan states fundamentally people do. And here we have someone telling us about that people fall into stories because there's no clear beginning and no clear end, and this gives them uncertainty about what they are. They need stories to constitute, to frame, to shape their life. The fantasy frame is that which constitutes the reality we perceive, and this feeds into everything the show has been going on so far, with the audiences and the cameras omnipresent, and like the roles shifting and being confusing. All of this is an alteration to the fantasy frame. The dullness of the story is development, blah blah blah, is with an occasional sly moment subverted. But ultimately, everything is, in a sense, predetermined by our desire. Inevitable causation, the power of drama. So, here's the thing. We can be, and this is Slavoj Žižek, we can be completely materialist. We can believe in a determinist world, but still recognize that there's some aspect of self-determination to it that we can actually find in ourselves. And that is not in any meaningful way impacting the world around us, but in the way we perceive the world around us. We can all experience the same material conditions and feel the same desires and be constituted by the same biology, but still find different fantasies in which we account for all these events and tell them to ourselves and account for them ourselves. This is the power of drama. The way we make meaning out of meaninglessness, and the meaning we make is inherently false, is inherently fake, is inherently to paint over something that cannot be represented, understood, or symbolized. The beginning and end of stories of true life drama, as he says right here, are the real stories that never cease to attract viewers. They are the root cause of desire. They are that unattainable object which drives the emotional investment in the first place. And unfortunately, people start their lives amidst the vortex of stories, is what he says. So that is very interesting, because it feeds into the idea of the literary theory stuff I talked about in the last episode, where authorship is fundamentally an Oedipal struggle between the father, the text that came before, and the new text you are writing. In a sense, you are only reiterating what your father, the previous text, has already written. So you are constituted in a vortex of stories. You are surrounded by fantasies. Fantasies are not necessarily what you come up with yourself, but tropes. I even want to say this goes into critiquing some cliche narratives. Oshii here is like critiquing desires of like romance stories, of family stories, when family is like transcendentalized in an aesthetic representation into something fundamentally like real and deep and meaningful as a connection, when it's all just us making shit up in order to explain ourselves, our beginning and our end, our origins and where we come from and where we go. We are born into a vortex of stories that tell us who we are and which place we occupy in society and what surrounds us. And these stories reflect our being in a very fundamental way. Through stories, we can understand our place, even if it's stories not about ourselves or anything related to us. They can give us inspiration. Tropes are how we model our life. If you've seen too much romance, you might want to assume that a relationship is only true if it even meaningfully or closely approaches some of the tropes you've seen in that romance story. If these overwhelming romance tropes like fundamentally coin the image of what, like for example, chivalry or like courtship, when there was these highly ritualized ways of approaching a lady or whatever, you know, in medieval times. Stories shape fundamentally reality, and this is I think what this is about right here. And on a stage which everyone experienced called family. So this feeds into the psychoanalytic idea of like the Oedipal struggle. Of course, the myth of Oedipus is a story, right? It's a myth. It's about these universal principles. To recap just quickly, Oedipus basically, his father gets a prophecy that says, your son will kill you. So and will marry his mother, and he's like, no, fuck this. So he sends away his son to be killed, I think. But instead he survives. He floats down a river or whatever, and he grows up. And Oedipus doesn't know about any of this. So what happens is that Oedipus returns, actually kills his father, and marries his mother without knowing that it's his father or his mother. This is what happens. The struggle between son and father, mythologized as a kind of universal symbol, which psychoanalysts have long since used as a symbol, as a model for how these relationships pan out. And what do we have in this episode other than an Oedipal struggle? Because this guy right here, and this will happen later in the episode, this guy right here is the son of Morocco, and he's here to prevent being born through incest. He's trying to avert the determinism of Oedipus, where his mother is basically impregnated by his grandfather. It's really, really reversed, because everything is kind of fucked up and crazy right now, yes? By his father. Okay. He's trying to prevent that his daughter, which is his mother, is gonna be impregnated by his father. So the son will kill the father. I don't know if he's gonna marry the mother. I doubt it, because it's his daughter. It's only gotten more fucked up. I want to say that it's like an variation of Oedipus, which is much more bizarre and complicated and fucky and completely, oh my god, I don't know where to start. So the relationship aren't completely clear. So, okay, let's go on. How ironic is it that the story, which is constantly moving towards its finale must start on the stage of blood relations, where nobody knows when it started or when it will end. Okay, so this is maybe more interesting. This mythologizing of blood relations, which he is also doing, in that he's like seeing that his father has impregnated his daughter, and he is the son of his father and his daughter. You know, where did it start? Where did it end? It's a time paradox. And this is fundamentally why it has no beginning and no ending, but as well as blood relations. You can go back in history. Like, you could be a descendant of, like, Genghis Khan or something, you know? Because blood just spreads and goes through generations. And there's no way you can track it all back to the roots. So you mythologize blood relations, and you separate the family from everyone else in the world and isolate into the family unit, while it is actually completely unclear what this family unit even is. While you don't even know why there is this distinction. You just make it up. You mythologize it in order to have the sense of a beginning and an end, a place of belonging. And now even deeper, this is also the self. You try as a self to find your own beginning and your end of your selfhood, but you don't recognize how you're fundamentally constituted by stories, by fantasies, by illusions you make up of yourself, which fundamentally come from other people, by relationships to other people you're constituted. So you in your arrogance trying to draw a line, call yourself a family with like an individual, like outside of society, completely against everyone else, is fascistic. Because if you have a country that has this logic of we are this family and everyone who is not a family is irrelevant to us and we will break the laws of that, that is fascistic, because then you can justify like an organism like the Nazi Germany, who killed the Jews because it was a threat to their family integrity. But also on the level of the self, if you draw the lines between yourself and society, then fundamentally you are missing that you are constituted by society and constituted by the relationships to society, and that you yourself without society are actually nothing. There's no beginning and no end, but you try to find one by isolating yourself into one coherent being. Alright, however, if that is the case, the ultimate theme of the story, or the theme of all stories ever, as a very high claim, must be to end that story itself. So I'm looking very much forward to the end of that story itself. Well, yeah, obviously it's a theme of stories. They want to have endings. That means they come to a conclusion. Jeez. Okay, let me go on. So he explains that his role has always been as a kind of an arbiter of destruction and chaos with forceful developments. They even call it like kind of obvious leitmotif and Deus Ex Machina. This supremely chaotic story, he will put an end to it. He is like now from the police, and he's saying them that they kind of need to win. And here, okay, what he's doing here, he is convincing the father to kill his family and himself. This is going into some masculine toxic hegemonic ideas. What is going on here is, okay, you know the stories about like suicide killers who kill their family and then shoot themselves. It's almost always fathers. Why is it? Because the father has sort of a hegemonic role. The arbitrary, illusory fantasy idea of the family that he has drawn around himself is instilled with similarly arbitrary and completely redundant ideas of pride. What is happening here is that he, the blue man, is talking to the father and is like appealing to a sense of pride. the only matter of time, like, he's appealing to pride. He's saying, how can you, like, take pride in your family of thieves and so on if they're gonna be imprisoned, and you will probably be imprisoned longer? How is your family gonna survive without a strong caretaker? So he's appealing to his desire to be powerful, to have the phallus, to be empowered, to be the respected figure, to be the alpha male, and is saying that without you, they wouldn't be anything. So you better end them. Because in this capacity, this is the only way in which a small, powerful little man, the father, can even begin to think he has any power over his family, even begin to think that there's in any way, in any capacity, any possibility for him to reclaim that which he thinks he wants, like the lie we've talked about, the phallus, the idea of being the empowered person. Only by this way. So this show, in its meta and fourth wall breaking awareness, very much points out to us that this is the consequence of having such ideas about the family. Ooh. But as you can tell, there's a lot going on here. So he's getting punished. Mariko is pointing out that this is an idiotic development and this can be a good ending. And he says a truly good ending must always be executed as planned, which means a determinism. From a materialist, like, determined standpoint, it goes in a predictable manner. This is the idea here. As we've talked about, like, desire and fantasy constituting everyone and so on and so on. The man who's never mentioned before he's the last character of the story and supposed to turn things around completely. So he reveals himself now to be her son. And he wanted to prevent her from seeing her ancestors, so in order he would never be conceived. Okay, listen. I'm gonna just throw out a bunk theory. This is Death Drive. If you don't know Death Drive, go on my main channel, watch my video on Evangelion and Death Drive. Why is it Death Drive? He is an arbiter of suffering. He's talking about the endless repetitions as he was enslaving Inomaru. About the endless repetitions going on. He's talking about all these beginnings and endings, about these middle parts, and these stories that are always repeating and rewriting itself in history. What he is doing is being stuck in a time loop. What he's doing is also repetition. Like, he is here, so that means his mother birthed him. But he's here trying to prevent himself from being born. This is Death Drive in a very, very abstract sense. If we think about authorship in Oedipus complex, then think about authorship in Death Drive. Think about this idea of stories that keep being written and written and written, and you partake in this writing, but your attempt is to try to escape that cycle by not actually escaping that, but by not acknowledging it, but trying to prevent it in a futile attempt that you can never reach, because it's a fucking paradox. You cannot eliminate the writing that has happened before you, even though you try to write something new. You will always be stuck in reproducing these patterns. That is what he does. Fundamentally also, apparently, okay, this is also uncanny. He talks about the fact that his mother just appeared, birthed him, and disappeared. Meaning it led to a lack in love in the oral stage for him, which is in Evangelion, for example, and in Freudian psychoanalysis, tied into depression and death drive. So I don't know if this reading has any quality to it at all. I'm just rambling like a crazy motherfucker right now because this has so much going on that I kind of try to make sense of it in some capacity. A father was born by his own daughter. Son was raised his own mother. About where would be the best place to end this cursed cycle of blood relations. See, even he's invaded by the fantasy frame. Even for him, blood relations becomes more than a more oppressive transcendental idea that constitutes his identity than anything else. He wants to end his life to escape the cycle. Will he be able to do it? Have you conceived me yet? And, you know, that is a mystery. Not yet to be revealed, apparently. Yeah, that's... I don't know, long live the ancestors, and he shoots himself. Long live the ancestors. The past lives, the fathers live, the sons die. We are stuck in repetitions and cycles. always being following stories that have already been written, always being constituted by stories that have already been written, always just acting along lines of stories whose ending is long since predetermined. She can't escape the paradox, and so can we, can't we? We are constituted by the way in which we grow up in a family. Our psyche, our personality will be fundamentally formed by it. This is, I want to see how the last episode deals with this, because this is leading up to something big. And I can't wait to see it. Holy fuck, that's a dark ending. Turns out, Inomaru, after Morocco disappeared, couldn't let go of his desire and ended up as a man, always chasing behind her, not living a stable life, eating in soba shops, telling his tragic story. Ultimately, his desire drives him to run after it in a cold, deserted place, completely alone, surrounded by fragments of his past. And dying alone. So, regarding from this standpoint, looking back on it, Morocco has, through a function as the object of desire for everyone involved, served to cause a rift, to disrupt order, to cause antagonisms in the family. She basically, through her appearance, deconstructed everything about the family. The illusion completely faded and broke down. Including this young man's life. Okay, let's go through a very, very particular scene. And I think that's the only one I really need to talk about. It's where he himself gives an account of the events of what his family's state was in the beginning. We had a decent condo, material possessions are fine. Father had large debt, kept busy paying them off and felt burdened by his family, like pretty close to my analysis in episode 1. Mother hated dealing with neighbors, she being neurotic and whatever, and he is full of conceit. So I want to even go so far and say he's kind of not only like the man in the Lacanian sense, but also the otaku. Wanting to experience something, but being scared of society. Neat, isolated, sitting at home. The only thing you have when you're neat, isolated, sitting at home is staring through your fantasy frame, be it the TV lens or the binocular. Day after day, he was looking out on fields, dreaming for himself up a future that he would be his desire. Recall last episode when I talked about all men dream about is their lies. What he's dreamed up for himself, and I want to go so far and say this ties into the otaku insofar as at this point, like moe culture and the idea of waifus has already existed. Completely idealized girl images, which for every involved man can completely satisfy their desire. They can serve as daughter, granddaughter, wife, sexual partner, beautiful object of desire, and all things at the same time. This young man, through only looking out for this and through imagining himself a fantasy of transcendence where someone like this would bring his life into an interesting frame, lost his actual life. What it turned into was that he constructed for himself an object of desire that was unattainable, that was false, that was imagined, after which he chased forever. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. This illusory figure doesn't exist, and if it would exist, it would cause dismay. And as it must be, this illusory figure, this object of desire disappears. And I keep stressing the idea of object of desire because that is what it is. The object petit a in Lacanian psychoanalysis is the cause of desire, the object of desire, which in itself can never be attained, because as you approach it, you realize either it doesn't fulfill your desire because it was only projected onto it through the fantasy, or you cannot have it in the first place because it is completely imagined. This completely imagined girl had to have been a liar, a con man, or an impossibility. The series itself, I don't think, gives a clear answer to what she was, but that she was all those things, all those falsehoods, all those impossibilities, and we weren't questioning it. The mother directed her gaze at us in episode 5 and said, "It is your idiocy, dear viewer, basically, that you accepted this outrageous story." Of note here is that Mamoru Oshii directed Urusei Yatsura, which is a story about an alien invader girl coming to Earth to a boy who has the exact same voice actor as our boy here, is Inomaru, and it's called Ataru. And basically, within one episode of Shenanigans, she promised to marry him, and even though he didn't want that. But he still wanted it. So the entirety of Urusei Yatsura is this fantasy of this insanely attractive alien girl just randomly appeared and turned my life into an arrangement of hijinks, interesting plot lines, and she will marry me, and she's the fantasy girl, the object of desire, the one who can satisfy desires, and so on. Of course, Urusei Yatsura is a bit more complex. There's a bit more going on. The desire is subverted in many different ways, especially because Ataru doesn't want to commit to one woman. But that's not the point. The point here is that Oshii, in his career, directed at least 30 episodes of Urusei Yatsura, 2 movies of it, but apparently got tired of it. So his second Urusei Yatsura movie, Beautiful Dreamer, is, and this ties into Gosenzo-sama Banbanzai in my opinion, because Beautiful Dreamer is all about cycles. There's a lot of repetition going on there. Explain on a meta level how redundant and how repetitive the formula of Urusei Yatsura is. I don't want to go deeper into it because spoilers and so on for anyone who hasn't seen it. And I know, Tsugoi, Uyron, Comrade, you haven't seen it, I think, at least. I think you're still watching Urusei Yatsura so far. So the idea of cycles and being stuck in a repetition of wish fulfillment and yet denial of object of desire was present in Beautiful Dreamer. This is the theme of Gosenzo-sama Banbanzai. The object of desire always eludes him, and I think Oshii, having been tired with the storyline which he could never bring to an end, which never had a real end, abandoned Urusei Yatsura back then. He got in conflict with a mangaka and he basically quit the job or was fired off the job from Urusei Yatsura after his Beautiful Dreamer was so fucking experimental and weird. So now he's here, talking about similar themes. Talking about the idea of this illusory fantasy girl suddenly appearing and being the solution to all troubles and crisis and bringing color and refreshment to the life, no matter what kind of weird and contrived storyline she comes up with, being the one to fulfill the hole that he anticipates in his own life. And basically, as it turns out, since he desired, this became a self-fulfilling prophecy. His desire led to this. Words like family and blood relations are mere concepts. I thought I can live with that innocent girl just by admitting that she's my own granddaughter. This is about the family. This is about embracing the indulgence of the fantasy frame. That was her cunning trap. I couldn't own her is something he says at some point. I don't exactly know where, and I don't want to wait until that part comes around. It might be just about any second. Yeah, it's coming up now. Even though I live with sandstone roof, I couldn't make her my own. Think about what I said last episode about the male sexuation being about possession. He wanted to possess her, make her his own. She managed to be that which Lacan says is impossible. She managed to be the woman that is the phallus. She turned so much into the object of desire, the impossible object of desire, that she herself became impossible. She used her beauty to intrude and draw all the desire of all men on her. The time cop wanted to protect her from the sexuality of Inomaru. The father wanted to have her as his subject and daughter and obedient daughter. Inomaru wanted her sexually. The mother inquired and investigated into revealing her, which also turned into the desire of the detective. they all rummaged around her and struggled around her and were all impacted and made her into their object of desire. She used her beauty to intrude on all of them, yet she kept herself from all of them. The only one who's unaffected by this is she herself. She can just escape. And you know, this is the nature of indulging in fantasy, of constituting identity in fantasy, of hinging your life, which could otherwise maybe be lived fulfilled, with aspirations of transcending it of such phantasmatic proportions. And, you know, such a weird, theatrical, seemingly lighthearted series coming to such a depressing end, where he just runs and fails and runs and fails and dies, not able to reach his object of desire is pretty nuts. But, you know, me tying this into the idea of isolation, of death drive, of... Yeah, death drive is in principle this, like, following the illusory, imaginary object of desire, hoping to attain it, but never actually doing it. Oh, this is it. Alright, hope you appreciated this rant, this very long, detailed rant about Gosenzo-sama Banbanzai. I appreciated the series. It was very interesting. There's probably a lot in it which I haven't discussed yet and analyzed yet. I'll probably do some research on my own just to see if I can find some more shit, but for now, this is it. Have a nice day.